Don't think we've been properly introduced. I'm James Bigglesworth. My friends call me Biggles.
Hooray for Hollywood. Yes, we're about to start a series based upon movies that tanked at the box office and those video games associated with them. Video games were plentiful in the 1980s, but publishers were keen to give themselves an extra advantage where they could, and brand recognition was certainly helpful. Be it sports stars like Gary Lineker or Daley Thompson, cartoons like Garfield or Top Cat, arcade conversions like Double Dragon or Rolling Thunder, or even TV quiz shows like Pop Quiz or Krypton Factor. That small piece of name recognition of a known franchise or property can give you the advantage over the Monty Moles and Minor Willies of this world. And movies were no exception, with certified guarantees like 1990's Batman the movie and 89's Ghostbusters 2 destined to bring money into the pockets of both movie studios and software houses, regardless of the quality of either product. But it wasn't always risk-free, however. RoboCop was a gamble for Ocean, an unknown quantity. Unluckily, the movie ended up being a critical and commercial success, and the game was pretty good too, seeing it rooted to the top of the games chart for some time. Other movies like Navy SEALs or Nightbreed didn't end up being quite as successful when released for cinema-going audiences, and so the resultant video games struggled to perform, even though both were above-average games. Biggles on the ZX Spectrum was one such title, Chocks Away What. James Bigglesworth, otherwise known as Biggles, was a fictional British World War I pilot written by author W.E. Johns, because for some reason authors hate their Christian names. I don't know why. He made his first appearance in the first issue of Popular Flying magazine. Sounds great, doesn't it? In a story called The White Fokker. That's Fokker, as in the German plane, you gutter-minded brutes. W.E. Johns would go on to make stories until his death in 1968, with the series of Biggles spanning nearly 100 volumes. In 1986, the movie version of the titular hero was released, but with a twist. Rather than just being a straight World War I epic, the movie was given a time-travelling element, where Biggles' time twin, I don't know what one of those is, a New Yorker called Jim, falls through a time hole to 1917 and assists Biggles with the war effort against the Germans and their dreaded sound weapon. Ooh. Despite a royal premiere that had both Prince Charles and Princess Diana in attendance, Biggles tanked at the box office, making just a piffling $100,000 return on a $7 million budget in the States. Although it should be added that it was released a good 2 years later than in the UK. Not only was it received poorly by audiences, but critics weren't a fan either, with David Robinson of The Times concluding the script was witless, the direction showy, and the lead performances weakly amiable. So not a great 80s return for Biggles then, a movie also noted as being the last movie of Peter Cushing, who died shortly afterwards. And so we come to the video game. Released in 1986 for the 8-bit systems, Biggles' Adventures in Time was released by Robert Maxwell's Mirrorsoft and developed by Delali Software. Split into multiple parts, the first is certainly the most Bigglesy, as you're in an actual warplane, blowing up Fokkers. That's still Fokkers as in the warplane, by the way. You cheeky buggers. It's a perfectly competent early Spectrum side-scroller. There's an issue with the control in that you've got to tap fire to shoot your machine guns and hold it down to blow up installations with bombs. It's a bit of a fiddle in all honesty, and it's not something you want to do when you're trying to emulate Biggles and show off to young girls. There's lots of attractive women into Biggles these days, obviously. Of course, this will lead to a ton of errors, but you know what? It's not the end of the world. If you get shot down, you don't die, you leap through time. And you play the second game, and the flyboy is on the battlefield and pumping Jerry full of lead. You can duck through caverns, blasting and grenading with gay abandon. It's possibly the best game of the selection. Another ball's up from you, and you'll be leaping into the far distant future of 1986. Here, Jim and Biggles have to draw fire from each other as they leap from rooftop to rooftop. This is a pretty ingenious concept for an early game, to be fair, and a testament to how much thought was put into the game as a whole, along with the time-switching mechanic, unusual for a film license of the time. But it's also sadly the second worst level of the game, down to the absolutely abysmal detection between the feet of our heroes and the platforms they're supposed to be leaping onto, leading to countless frustrating failures. If you do manage to finish all 3 of the main games, you're given a password with which to access side 2 of your purchase, where you can pilot a Met Police helicopter in 1917 because of all the timey-wimey stuff. You've got to pick up all your chums who sound like previous champions of a public schoolboy soggy biscuit competition, Algie, Ginge and Bertie. After that, it's on to blow up the sound machine. Despite its grandstand finish position, it's the least fun part of the game. That might be a personal preference possibly, as I'm always likely to struggle to find much enjoyment from ZX Spectrum flight sims in 2019. Fairly mixed reviews from the magazines saw a 7 out of 10 from your Sinclair, 4 out of 5 from Sinclair User, a 63% out of 100 from Crash Magazine. Yes, at the time, all 3 magazines employed a different type of scoring system. So that's it, old boy. What we have here is a movie conversion a little less than wizard, but some way worse than a wing full of lead. What? Now, this is going to be a long-running series, as there are countless games released where the films have stunk up the place in the box office. Thousands of them, thousands indeed, and not just on the ZX Spectrum. Look at this cavalcade of shite. So that's something to look forward to, isn't it? As the nights draw out, I guess, because it's summer now. And that's it for today. Okay, thanks, bye.